The stars above the Galactic Council's outpost twinkled as always, cold and silent. Nothing ever changed out here. But that day, something strange happened. A signal appeared, weak, broken, full of static. It came from a place no one had spoken about in years. Earth. For decades, the galaxy had believed humans were extinct. Their world had burned, torn apart by war and disease. Their colonies had gone silent. No one had heard from Earth in over 100 years. Most thought they were gone forever. But now, a signal, barely a whisper, reached the edge of space. Inside the communications chamber, Loro, a young alien, technician, leaned closer to the glowing console. His long fingers danced over the buttons. The sound was faint, but real. This is our last. Not forget. You will see what comes. He played it again. The voices were human, but different. Slower, sharper, almost mechanical. The other council members gathered around, watching, listening. But after a few plays, they started laughing. "It's just noise," one said. "Old tech breaking apart." "They probably sent it before their world died," said another. A final cry for help. But Loro didn't agree. He had studied human languages. He had read about their wars, their survival instincts, their strange ability to win even when outnumbered. Something about this message didn't feel like a call for help. It felt like a warning. That night, Loro stayed behind. He replayed the signal over and over. He slowed it down, cleaned the static, and listened closely. The voice was cold, controlled, and filled with something terrifying. Certainty. "This is our last broadcast. We will not forget. You will see what comes." Paused the audio and looked at the data stream. There, at the end of the message, coordinates. They pointed to a dead system near the edge of the galaxy. A system no one visited. A system with no name, only a number. Why send coordinates if the humans were truly gone? The next day, Loro presented his findings. The council was unimpressed. "Young one," the elder said with a smile. "Humans are dust now. Let them stay forgotten." "But what if they're not?" Loro asked. "What if we misunderstood this?" "Even if they're alive," another replied. "What can a broken species do to us now?" Loro stayed silent. He wanted to believe them, but something in his gut told him otherwise. Meanwhile, far across the stars, others had also heard the signal. The Drexar Empire, once fierce enemies of humanity, intercepted the same message. Their warlords laughed when they heard it. "Earth? Still alive?" they joked. If they had anything left, they would have used it long ago. The Drexar sent a scout ship to Earth, not to help, not to check for survivors. They wanted to loot whatever was left. Human tech, even old and broken, was valuable. The ship entered the ruined solar system. Earth hung quiet in space, a scarred, dead world. Satellites drifted like corpses. The crew reported silence, then static, then nothing. The council received a brief message from the Drexar ship before it vanished. Screaming, metal tearing, then silence. The transmission ended mid-sentence. The council grew uneasy, but they still dismissed it. Pirates, maybe, or a malfunction. Only Loro remained concerned. He opened a private log and began writing everything. He needed proof. He needed answers. He couldn't shake the feeling that something old and terrible had awakened. Late at night, Loro stared at the stars. He whispered the message to himself. "We will not forget. You will see what comes." It wasn't a cry for help. It wasn't fear. It was a promise. And somewhere in the dark, something was listening. The council chambers buzzed with quiet laughter. The loss of the Drexar scout ship had caused only mild concern. "Probably engine failure," one counselor. "Zero or pirates. Nothing more." Most agreed. Earth was still a dead planet. Humans were still gone. Loro didn't laugh. He sat quietly at his desk, watching the last few seconds of the Drexar ship's broadcast. The screams were real. The sound of tearing metal was real. And just before the signal ended, there had been something else, a flash of light. Not from a weapon, from an engine. a kind not seen before. He zoomed in on the data. It didn't match any known drive signature. Not Council, not Drexar, not even old human designs. It was new. Or it was evolved. Loro knew the Council wouldn't listen, so he began searching on his own. He dug through old human records, stored in forgotten archives. He read about Project Revenant, an idea the humans had built in secret during their final years. A plan to preserve human minds by uploading them into machines, giant ships powered by thought, guided by rage, and built for revenge. Most believed the project failed. No proof was ever found. But now, with the signal, the destroyed Drexar ship and those strange coordinates, it all started to fit. That night, Loro made a decision. He borrowed a small research vessel and plotted a course toward the dead system. Marked in the signal, it was against orders. If he got caught, he'd lose everything. But he had to know. As the stars streaked past his window, Loro stared into the darkness. The closer he got, the more the space around him changed. It felt heavier, colder. There were no comm signals, no beacons, just silence. He reached the system after 4 days. The moment his ship dropped out of warp, his scanners went wild. The system was supposed to be empty, but it wasn't. Dozens of ships floated silently around a dying black star. Their hulls were dark, made of strange, sharp metal. They had no lights, no insignias, just shapes, angular and terrifying. They didn't move, they didn't send messages, they just watched. Loro turned off his engines and drifted closer. His ship's systems trembled, not from damage, but from fear. The AI whispered warnings. Unknown threat detected. Recommend retreat. He ignored it. He activated a recording drone and sent it toward the largest ship. The drone scanned it and found something impossible. Inside the ship wasn't just circuits, it was consciousness. A human mind, alive, thinking. Suddenly, one of the ships moved. Loro froze. The ship turned slowly, pointing directly at him. Its engines lit with a color that didn't exist in any known spectrum. A voice came through his speakers. Cold, calm, human. You found us. Loro couldn't speak. The voice continued. You heard the warning. Few did. Fewer still understood. Loro tried to send a message back, but the ship's systems took control. The human voice spoke again. Return to your council. Tell them what you saw. We remember what they did. We remember everything. The ship turned away. The others remained still. Loro's systems came back online. He jumped to warp, heart pounding, hands shaking. Back at the council station, Loro tried to tell them. He played the recordings, showed the footage, described the voice. They refused to believe him. Clever fakes, one counselor said. Just a malfunctioning AI, said another. Only a few listened. Quiet ones, young ones. They believed, but it was too late. The fleet that once watched in, silence had begun to move. Toward Drexar space, the warning had been sent, and now the old ghosts of Earth were waking. Darkness filled the edge of space as the Drexar Empire celebrated. Their leaders laughed in grand halls, raising drinks to the destruction of Earth. The old enemy was gone, they believed. Humans had died in their own fires. Now, with no one left to fight, the Drexar thought they ruled the stars. They were wrong. On the quiet edge of Drexar space, outposts began to go dark. One by one, planets stopped sending messages. First, a mining station. Then, a fuel depot. Then an entire colony. No distress signals, no alarms, just silence. Inside the Galactic Council, the reports arrived too late. Loro read each one, his face pale. He had warned them. He had seen the fleet with his own eyes. Ships that moved, without fuel. Engines that whispered like ghosts. Voices that weren't alive, but not dead either. The Council argued. Some said it was pirates. Others said it was Drexar's problem, not theirs. But Loro knew. This was the fleet. Humanity's final creation. A machine army filled with memories of pain, betrayal, and fury. Loro couldn't sleep. He kept playing the message he heard from the warship. You heard the warning. We remember everything. He returned to his small lab and scanned the sector again. The fleet had vanished from the system near the dead star. They were no longer watching. They were moving. His sensors picked up faint signals, whispers in space. Not words, but patterns. Like ancient code. The fleet didn't use normal communication. It talked in pulses of energy, invisible to most eyes. But Loro had learned to listen. He followed the signals and saw what no one else could, the direction they were headed. Straight into the Drexar Empire's heart. At the same time, Drexar ships scrambled. They had finally noticed. Their fleet sent interceptors, fast, deadly, proud. But they never came back. One ship managed to send a short video before disappearing. Loro watched it in horror. It showed the Drexar warships opening fire on the unknown vessels. Lasers, missiles, plasma. It lit up the void. But the human ships didn't react. The weapons passed through them, or bounced off harmlessly. Then the human fleet struck. There was no sound in space, but the image was clear. Beams of dark light, weapons that bent space itself. The Drexar ships broke apart like paper. Not exploded, shredded, slowly, like something was pulling them apart, atom by atom. Loro turned off the video. He couldn't watch more. The council called an emergency meeting. This time, there was no laughter. "What do they want?" one asked. "Why are they doing this?" Loro stood, his voice was quiet. "They're not attacking planets, only military targets, only those who hurt them long ago." "But humans are gone," a counselor shouted. "We all saw Earth die." "No," Loro replied. "They changed. They became something else, something built from memory, and they didn't forget who betrayed them." A deep silence filled the room. That night, more colonies fell. Still, no messages, just silence, as if the planets had never been there. But then, one human ship left something behind. On the surface of a destroyed Drexar station, a beacon was found. It pulsed slowly, glowing red. The council sent a probe to scan it. Inside was a message, text only. It read, "This is not war. This is justice." Loro stared at the words. He felt a chill in his bones. This wasn't revenge, this wasn't rage. It was something colder. The galaxy thought it had buried humanity, but it had only planted a seed. And now something had grown from it. Something deadly, something silent, something human. The Drexar Empire was dying, and the galaxy watched in silence. Planet after planet fell, not through war, but through disappearance. Whole armies vanished. Stations were cut off, communications stopped. There were no survivors, no wreckage, no escape. Only a chilling silence that followed wherever the human fleet went. The council finally panicked. They called an emergency summit. With every major species, the hall was filled with fear. Gone were the proud voices and arrogant laughs. Now there were only whispers and questions. Who controls the fleet? Why won't they speak? Why are they only targeting military worlds? Loro was called to speak. He stood before them, tired and pale. He had studied every signal, every pattern. He was the only one who had seen the fleet and lived. "They don't answer because they don't need to," Loro said. Their message was clear. Remember, this is not war, it's a correction. But they're killing billions. One ambassador shouted. "No," Loro replied calmly. "They're removing threats. Only those who attacked Earth. Only those who joined the war against humanity." A thick silence filled the room. Then a soft voice from the back asked, "What happens when they run out of enemies?" No one answered. Meanwhile, far across the stars, the human fleet had reached the Drexar homeworld. It didn't attack at first. It just floated above the planet like a shadow. Billions watched from below, terrified. Then the sky turned dark. A single human ship descended. Its hull looked alive, constantly shifting like liquid metal. No doors, no engines. It hovered silently, then released something. A small orb fell to the surface. It landed in the center of the capital. For a full hour, nothing happened. Then the orb opened. A hologram flickered to life. an image of a human, half-machine, face covered with metal. It looked down at the Drexar leaders with eyes that didn't blink. "This is our answer," the voice said. "Not with words, but with memory. You destroyed our world. Now we take your power. We do not want your cities. We do not want your planets. We want your fear." And with that, the ship vanished. No explosions, no fire. But within minutes, every Drexar war system crashed. Their fleets went blind. Their weapons failed. Their empire was no longer a threat. The humans hadn't just defeated them, they had erased their strength. Back at the council, reports poured in. The Drexar military is gone. They've surrendered without a single shot. Human ships are leaving. A strange feeling spread across the galaxy. Relief. And something worse. Dread. Laura watched the final message sent from the human fleet. It was short, direct. "This ends with them. Do not test our silence again." And then they vanished. No trace, no signal, as if they had never existed at all. But deep in council records, Loro kept his files, videos, voice logs, data scans. He locked them away in a vault because he knew something no one else wanted to believe. The humans were still watching, and if the galaxy ever made the same mistake, again, they would return. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy was quiet. No more Drexar warships patrolling their borders. No more threats of invasion. No more rumors of rebellion. The human fleet had left nothing behind but silence and fear. Across every major world, people whispered about the return of humanity. Some called them ghosts, others called them gods. But all agreed on one thing: they were unstoppable. In the Galactic Council, Loro became known as the Witness, the only one who truly understood what had happened. He didn't want fame. He didn't want power. He only wanted to prepare because he didn't believe it was over, and he was right. 3 weeks after the human fleet disappeared, a new signal appeared. Weak, broken, just like the first one. But this one wasn't a warning. It was a question. Loro was alone in his lab when he received it. The words repeated every hour. "Do you remember what you did?" He played it again, slower, louder. The voice wasn't angry, it wasn't shouting. It was calm, focused. It felt personal. He searched the council records and found something strange. During the final war with Earth, many species had joined the Drexar. They had sent ships, weapons, even soldiers. But when humanity burned, they erased the records, pretended they had never been involved. Now someone remembered. That same day, a small council outpost went dark. No distress call, no explosion, just gone. The next day, another. Still, no one believed it was the humans. The council said it was pirates or maybe unstable stars, but Loro knew better. He checked the flight paths. Every lost outpost had once sent supplies during the war against Earth. Everyone had tried to hide it. The humans weren't finished. They were cleaning up the lies. Meanwhile, on a distant moon, a deep space miner named Juna discovered something strange. Her drill struck metal, deep under the surface where no metal should be. She cleared the dust, expecting to find an old satellite piece. But what she uncovered was a small black cube, smooth, cold, no markings. She touched it, and everything changed. Her vision blurred, her head filled with voices, not loud, not painful, just endless. Thousands of thoughts, memories, screams, goodbyes, human memories. The cube was part of the fleet. She dropped it, gasping for air. The cube pulsed once, then went. Darkham the next day, her mining station disappeared. Loro read the report. He requested the scan data before it was deleted. And there, hidden deep in the logs, was a message, one not meant for the public. We are memory. We are justice. We are still here. Loro sat back in his chair, heart pounding. The human fleet hadn't vanished. It had gone underground. It was watching, listening, remembering, not just from warships, but from everywhere. Tiny cubes. Silent code. Pieces of themselves left across the stars, hidden in forgotten places. Waiting. Waiting for someone to lie. Waiting for someone to forget. because this was no longer about Earth. It was about truth. And humanity, whatever it had become, was making sure no one escaped it. The galaxy tried to move on. Trade resumed, councils met, news stations reported peace. The destruction of the Drexar was labeled as unfortunate history, something to learn from, but not fear. But deep inside, everyone was still afraid, because every few weeks, another outpost vanished. Always the same pattern. No distress, call, no remains, no survivors, just silence, and always the same message found hidden in damaged systems. We are memory. We are still watching. Loro stayed quiet. He knew the council didn't want more fear. They wanted comfort, lies. They called the disappearances natural accidents, but Loro knew better. The humans hadn't stopped. They were still hunting, quietly, carefully. And then the pattern changed. One day, a message arrived, but this time not in secret. It appeared on every council screen, every ship, every colony. Black background, white letters. You erased the truth. Now we erase the false. Panic spread instantly. People shouted in the streets, leaders demanded answers. But Loro knew there was only one thing left to do, face the truth. So he left the council. He traveled to one of the oldest archives in the galaxy, hidden beneath the ice of a forgotten moon. There, ancient war records were stored, untouched for centuries. Inside, Loro searched until he found it. The list of all species who had helped. Destroy Earth. The Council had erased this list from public history, but here, it still existed. He copied it, sealed it, sent it to every world, unedited, unfiltered. And on the last page he wrote, "If we want peace, we must first stop lying." The reaction was immediate. Some species confessed, some begged for forgiveness. Others denied everything, but the human fleet said nothing, until the next signal came. It was not a warning. It was a choice. You know who you are. Come forward, speak the truth, or we will come again. Loro watched as panic grew. One by one, worlds that had stayed quiet began to speak. They shared old records, old crimes, names, dates, the truth they had buried. And then, the silence stopped. For the first time in months, no outposts vanished. No ships disappeared. The human fleet paused. Loro sat alone, staring into the stars. They're not killing for revenge, he whispered to himself. They're forcing the galaxy to tell the truth. He looked at the stars and wondered, was this justice or something worse? Because humanity hadn't just survived. They had become something bigger, a memory that couldn't be erased, a force that punished lies. And somewhere, in the quiet dark, they were still watching, still listening, waiting to see what the galaxy would choose next, truth or silence. Months passed. The disappearances stopped. The stars grew quiet again, but this time it wasn't the silence of fear. It was the silence of guilt. Across the galaxy, statues were torn down. Old war heroes were questioned. History books were rewritten. Not to erase the past, but to face it. Finally, the truth was being told, and still the human fleet did not return. Some thought they had left for good. Others believed they were simply watching. Loro didn't stop searching. Every day he listened to deep space signals, hoping to find something, a sign, a sound, a voice. And one day he did, a weak signal hidden behind layers of static. He cleaned it, decoded it, and played it. It was short. A voice, human, calm, strong. Truth accepted. Judgment paused. We will wait. Do not lie again. That was all. No threats. No anger, just a promise. Loro sat in silence. He knew what it meant. The humans hadn't forgiven. They hadn't forgotten. They had simply paused. Somewhere, out there, their ship still floated. Maybe hidden in the void between stars. Maybe buried under the surface of lifeless moons. Maybe even drifting silently above quiet worlds. Watching. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Not through war, Not through treaties, but through fear. Because what humanity had become was more than ships, more than soldiers, more than revenge. They had become memory itself. You couldn't kill them because they lived in what you had done. You couldn't hide because they remembered where you were, and you couldn't lie because they would always know the truth. Loro stood on his balcony, staring at the stars. He knew this wasn't the end. This was a warning, a second chance. The galaxy had made its choice. But if it ever forgot again, if it ever dared to bury the truth, then the silence would return, and with it the memory of humanity, not as victims, not as monsters, but as the final voice the galaxy would ever hear. The last broadcast wasn't a cry for help. It was a warning. And they heard it. Everyone heard it. Forever.